If you have not heard of Agenda 21, I really am. I'm going to warn you, buckle your seatbelts, because this is going to be a doozy, and you're going to hopefully learn some stuff tonight that is not going to make you very happy. And when Jane says it's going on in your backyard, I've included some slides tonight, customized it a little bit just for Buncombe County to show you that it is going on right here in your backyard. So needless to say, we'll get into it. But implementation of sustainable development agenda, and by the way, sustainable development, those terms are synonymous with Agenda 21. I've kind of included a few little sustainable souvenirs over here on the windowsill if you'd like to look, but if you think that this has not already gone through corporate America, you see what that says? This is from Staples. This is when we bought an ink toner cartridge. Sustainable Earth. And normally, I like to show this video before we start. I'm having some technical difficulties, but maybe you can get online and actually look at this on YouTube. This is Walmart. This is training for all their employees. They have to watch this DVD when they go as a new employee when you work for Walmart. Sustainability 2.0. It's a really creepy video. Anyway, some other stuff over here too. So we'll get into it, but it goes by many names: green growth, smart growth, Agenda 21. Sustainable development, sustainability. It'll go by 1,000 different names, and it's a shell game because they want to keep you guessing, right? Once you figure out something and what it is, then they're going to change the name and call it something else, so that they keep trying to stay one step ahead of you. But really, the goal is we're replacing constitutional government, which we're all entitled to by our Constitution, by not only the North Carolina Constitution but the federal Constitution. It's being replaced with regional governance, and that's a huge difference. And I hope by the end of the presentation, you'll kind of have an idea of what that concept means. You might already, but if you don't, then hopefully you'll understand before we're through. So I'd like to start off with this, Colossians, verse 16, chapter 1. For in him, Jesus, all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. If you're not a Christian, I hope that didn't offend you, but I like to put that out there because, in another place in the Bible it says to fear man is the ultimate sin. So we don't need to fear man, but we need to get involved politically and find out what all this is going on, because really, even though it may not seem like it, Jesus is in control. Sustainable development, intro and overview. Now, sustainable is a real word. Nobody would deny that. Sustainable development is an agenda. And that's our first key difference, okay? If I say that we have a $14 trillion debt, and that to print money to continue to service that debt is unsustainable, would anybody in this room disagree? No, of course not. That is unsustainable. So I mean that certainly is that's a true definition of that word. Sustainable development is an agenda, and it was actually created by this woman right here, Gro Harlem Brundtland. She is the vice president of the World Socialist Party, and she is who actually created this agenda back in the 90s. And it morphed into what was popularly called Agenda 21, and it was actually signed into soft law in the United States back in 1992. It's basically a blueprint that defines how all communities within the global population must operate in order to be sustainable. Now, the problem is, who gets to decide what is sustainable? Gro Harlem Brundtland, the Vice President of the Socialist Party. So that's where we get off. I don't think any of us agree that it's probably better to be sustainable versus being unsustainable in anything. But it's who gets to define what is sustainable and what's not sustainable. Sustainable development by stealth, and this is going to be obviously a very common feature. This is Gary Lawrence, and he actually said this when he was kind of at the head of the President's Council, that is the United States President, on sustainable development in 1998. Participating in a UN-advocated planning process. Everybody knows what UN means, correct? United Nations, that's very key. Would very likely bring out many of whom would actively work to defeat any elected official undertaking Agenda 21. You think local people might get a little upset if they thought that local officials were bringing in a UN policy into a local politics, say in Buncombe County? Well, sure we would. So we'll call our process something else, such as comprehensive planning. That's another great term. They love to use that. Growth management or smart growth. So already we're starting off obfuscating, correct? I mean, don't call it UN. Good Lord, don't tell anybody the UN's involved in it. Don't say sustainable development, call it something else so that the voters don't know what's going on, but we can see they're starting off right off the bat. What's his resume? Well, he started off as the planning director. Now, how harmless could that possibly be? How many planners do you think work for Buncombe County? You ever thought that they may be a new tool that's being used against the Tea Party? I think by the end you're going to see just how dangerous they can be. But that's where he started. He developed the world's first comprehensive plan dedicated to sustainability that ran the city of Seattle. He was advisor to President Clinton on the sustainable development. He represented the U.S. government at the United Nations Habitat 2. He worked in the Brazilian President's office, the British Prime Minister's office, the European Academy for Urban Environment in Berlin, and then also in Paris. You think this guy knows a little bit about sustainability? This was actually off of his website with his company. This was kind of a part of his bio. His writings and lectures have helped shape sustainability theory, policy, and practice throughout the world, promoting climate change, sustainable living, and economic development. So you see the word sustainable, how it's coming over and over and over again. But now, this agenda is not from the right, as in the Republicans, right? I mean, surely they're not involved in this. No. There aren't any Republicans in Buncombe County there. Well, there's good old Bush 1. It is the sacred principles enshrined in the United Nations Charter to which the American people henceforth pledge their allegiance. Before he was president, he was actually the ambassador to the United Nations, or the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. And that's actually when he made that statement. Good old Slick Willie. We love him. Some would say we probably miss him now. At least his, but anyway, he was involved right in Agenda 21 right here. He's the one that actually, by executive order, created the President's Council on Sustainable Development that Gary Lawrence was quoted at during that. So he was involved in it as well. Republicans are against this agenda, right? All right, this really, honestly, sometimes I've thought about if I could just teach my entire thing right off of this slide. And this is what, honestly, this is going to sound a little harsh, but we all have to grow up. We have to quit fighting this Republican, Democrat, I hate Republicans, I hate Democrats, because it's how they're foiling us every single time. At the top, they're the same people. They want the same thing. And I hope, at least, by the time you finish this presentation, you'll agree with me, at least to some extent, or at least that I'll make a good argument, that it's not just the Democrats that we're against. That there are Republicans and Democrats that both want the same thing. But where they're going, they just call it different things, and they're going to go about it a different way. All right, the left, the collectivists, they're all collectivists. That's really the best thing to call them. All right, or maybe some people call them globalists. I think that is also a good word. But the left are going to call it social justice. Boy, I mean, have we heard Barack Obama run that into the doggone ground? Yeah. Well, he's on the left. All right, but don't think that there's those on the right that think the same thing. They're just going to go a different way. Environmentalism, a wildlands project. We'll talk about that a little later. But you have a collectivist one world right. They're going to do it not by a huge government. They're going to do it with a government-private partnership. Halliburton. Anybody heard of Halliburton or Blackwater? I mean, these companies are, their hands, and some of these defense contractors, their hands are into everything. GE, all right? I mean, we talk about an example of crony capitalism. How much taxes did GE pay this year? Zero. Zero. What percentage of taxes did you pay? It wasn't zero, I bet. All right? That is the collectivist one world right, where it's going to be a giant public-private partnership, where it's not necessarily the government doing it, but it'll be a government-approved contractor, quote-unquote, that will run things. Okay, and that's, GE is a prime example of that. But, over here it's the Wildlands Project, over here it's called Smart Growth. Either way, it goes to sustainable development, and it goes to the same place. Government-controlled society, tyranny. There's many different forms of tyranny, but it's tyranny nonetheless. There's good old Newt Gingrich. Of course, please don't think he's not involved in it. What was he doing here? He was the keynote speaker for an event that will connect the House of Executives with sustainability experts, innovators in sustainability and energy efficiency providers, blah, 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 blah. He was a keynote speaker. So he knows about it. He was an environmental professor. You know, a lot of people like Nude. I think he's a smart guy, but he's not your friend when it comes to sustainability. Okay, this is the National Smart Growth Council. This was their picture. Remember the guy, one of the first guys we saw, recognize him? Kind of hiding back there in the back like a cockroach when the lights are on. There's Gary Lawrence. But now I want you to look around that picture and tell me somebody else you might recognize. And if you saw this last time, Jane, be quiet. You're not allowed to answer.
Paul Chu.
There's Jane.
Is that Chu?
Yes, Paul Chu is in there. That's not... Thank you. Who said that?
Christy Todd Whitman.
Yes. Who's that?
That's Pat McCrory.
That is Pat McCrory. That is your future governor.
Where?
Out there in the back.
That's my boy.
Pat McCrory, right there. And so these two, I think they might have had a chance to meet, mingle, discuss ideas, swap ideas back and forth. Yeah, I bet they did. And I think you're going to see later in some comments that I found from McCrory that I think McCrory took several plays out of Mr. Lawrence's obfuscate playbook. Other McCrory memberships. He was the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We're gonna get into that a little bit later, what they were. That sounds like a great thing, right? Well, sure, why not have a U.S. Conference of Mayors? Well, not so great. He was chairman of the North Carolina Metropolitan Coalition of Mayors. He was on the Homeland Security Advisor Council. I always love to see that when they're involved in Homeland Security. He was the president of the Republican mayors and local officials. He was participating in the Piedmont Alliance for Quality of Growth, the Piedmont Atlantic Mega Region. Did you know that you're in the Piedmont Atlantic Mega Region? Do you even know what the Piedmont Atlantic Mega? Well, I didn't either until I did research for this, and I didn't like it either.
Don't forget the Green Railroad.
There, yes, yeah, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. So, the North Carolina Metropolitan Mayors Coalition. That sounds great. I mean, what's wrong with that? Well, the North Carolina Metro is a group of mayors for the continued development of our metron regions in a livable, sustainable, and economically viable way. This, I argue, is the first example of McCrory in that he is advocating for regional governance. You see, he wants to bring other mayors together to make decisions for a region and not an area. See how that works? We're going to keep going.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Do those mayors have to sign a contract?
You know, that's a good question. Not for that one, but on others you'll see that they will. And I have some examples here. Where is it? Well, like here's a charter. Here's an equally charter that Buncombe County at one point was a part of this. Hickley. This is the United Nations group that somebody in Buncombe County would have had to sign. But we'll get into that. There are some that they do. All right, here's a statement from McCrory when it was a conference in Fort Worth, Texas. Show them pictures of what it can look like once you start planning. Remember how we talked about planners, city planners? Avoid the word density. Don't talk like a planner. And don't use your lingo because politicians don't understand it and constituency gets really turned off by the word density. Does that sound like somebody that's coaching to not really tell the truth of what you're doing, but do it anyway? It does to me. It certainly sounds like Gary Lawrence. Air and water pollution do not honor political boundaries. We should have joint city-county zoning. Now, for those that are running for county commissioners, what does that mean? You elect county commissioners to make the decisions for Buncombe County, correct? But is that what McCrory is advocating here? Is that what he's saying? He's saying that air and water pollution don't really honor your commissioner's boundaries. So he's advocating for a different way to make decisions.
Since every city is connected to the county and every county is connected to another city.
That's right.
It's basically saying that we should have one zoning for the entire everything.
And you're going to see it gets bigger and bigger, bigger, bigger. He wanted, this was in Mecklenburg County when he was mayor, the urban ecosystems analysis said, and this was a direct quote from McCrory in this report, we need a regional tree canopy policy that deals with sprawl and works across political boundaries. He wants a regional rule. You see the distinction there. Not a rule for Buncombe County or a rule for Asheville or a rule for Arden or a rule for Shelby, but a rule that will encompass the region. We don't, that's not the way our Constitution is set up. But they're operating as if it is. Taxes for trains. We're getting into your transit now. He almost lost that re-election for that $500 million transit that they voted in Charlotte. That was the most expensive one in North Carolina history. But here's this Gary Lawrence playbook again. It's not a straight line of steps you must go through to get to your ultimate goal. Wouldn't you like to know what his ultimate goal is? Is it a regional government? But a circle that goes round and round. You have to remember that 15, 20, 30, 50 years in the life of a city is nothing. What he's saying is this agenda will outlast you. Right? 50 years from now, none of us are going to be here. But sustainable development, I think, is what he's saying will be. And, they'll outlast you. Testified to the U.S. Senate in 2006. He was asked by Senator Shelby why the Conference of Mayors urged Congress to maintain an 80-20 split between highways and transit. He said it shows a commitment to a dual transportation system. You're going to see the more you dig into sustainability, the more they want to get you out of your car. And sustainability, Agenda 21, is certainly an attack on private property rights. There's no question about it. And one of the things they're after is your car. They want you out of your car and on a bike, maybe, or walking, or certainly on a train. Yeah.
And I just want to add something that I know Fremont found. They are crushing cars, he knows more about it than I do, if they're more than 10 years old, and they can do it without a title. Okay? This is all part of the plan.
If you wake up in the morning and your 10-year-old car is not in the driveway, it's probably at the crusher. Because there's been 2 cases in the last couple of weeks where people had their car disappear, and they finally tracked it down to a crusher.
Wow, I hadn't heard that.
And he contacted, I believe you contacted Tim Huff about it, right? He didn't even know about it. He's looking into it to see if we can get it repealed. But this is all part of this insidious thing that they're doing.
And it, by the way, that's crazy North Carolina's own law. Because if you don't have a title to your car, you don't own it. So they're saying, go out and steal a car, basically. You have to take it to the crusher and get it crushed. You don't even have to own it. And they'll pay you for metal content. So how can the state break their own law if you have to have a title for a car to own it?
The Cooperative Conservation Conference, McCrory gave one of the keynote speeches, Strengthening Shared Governance and Citizen Stewardship. That was the title of the talk that McCrory gave, Strengthening Shared Governance. See, he's really, here he was really, and this is at the White House, as you can see. So what is the White House Cooperative Conservation? Well, it was Executive Order 13352. That Bush signed in 2004. I have a copy of it here if you'd like to see it. But it is basically it's an executive order. Oh, well, let's see. You know what? Let's go to the next one. So Purpose is to ensure that the Departments of Interior, Agriculture, Commerce, Defense, which I thought was interesting, and the EPA implement laws relating to the environment and natural resources in a manner that promotes cooperative conservation with an emphasis. Now you got to hit this. Appropriate inclusion of local participation in federal decision making. Did you catch that? Not local decision making with federal participation. It is local participation in federal decision making. That's not the way our government's set up. The 10th Amendment says states are sovereign in practically everything other than what is strictly called for within the Constitution itself. This is exactly the opposite. And it was done by executive order. By Bush. Not by a Democrat, by a Republican. And McCrory was giving a keynote speech at the inaugural, after this was signed, and they had a big conference to celebrate and talk about it. At the same conference, the EPA Administrator, Stephen Johnson, gave just a swimming endorsement of McCrory. He's been a major partner with the EPA on bringing regional leaders together to address air quality and promote smart growth. Charlotte has overcome its environmental challenges through the use of collaboration. See all these fancy words for, we're going to bring all these city councils together and kind of make some decisions that, aren't directly exactly related to the taxpayer. You see how this is going? It is through partners like Mayor McCrory that we will spread the message of collaborative stewardship throughout the country. Collaborative stewardship. Now, this is one of the things he did, SEQL, and I think I've got it here somewhere. No, that's not it. It's up here somewhere. In Shelby, we actually joined this group. We pay dues to these people. And this is run basically through the Central Line of Council of Governments, but it's here, the next slide really shows it. This is very unique. McCrory created this. And you see something interesting there. It crosses the state border. Because political or water and pollution issues right? They don't stop with political boundaries.
They were having a big fight over the Canal River, but
Sure. Pat McCrory created this. The EPA funds it, and they're, in Cleveland County, we pay dues to them.
Why?
Because they wrote our land use plan. $66,000 Cleveland County paid in my tax money to SEQL, Central Line of Council of Governments. They're really the same thing, to write a land use plan that tells us we can't have heavy industry. It tells us we have to have bike paths. It tells us we have to have trains. It tells us we have to have buses. It tells us we have to be sustainable. We have to have stackable housing. But this is I tell you, that's a trial balloon right there, and I bet nobody in this room even knew about it, did you? That was done back in 2002 or something. It's done years ago. Now, here's the mega region, all right? Why stop at a two-state border? Why do that? And I hate it. I hate that we don't have the internet, because this is a link to YouTube. But you can go on McCrory's website. He's got this video that's linked right there on his website that he's running for governor on. And he's proud of this, all right? But the Piedmont Atlantic mega region stretches from Raleigh to Birmingham, Alabama. All right? Now, here's a direct quote, and please go watch the video when you get home. But back me up so that you know I'm not telling a fib. This is a direct quote from that video. All states, cities, and counties within the I-85 corridor will be one major region, regardless of political boundaries. I don't know what other evidence you need. Whether they be county or states, we all share many of the same resources. And of course in this, it's not really sustainable as much as he said, remember in the video, because I think we watched it, the other one, he's like, well, we got to compete against Europe in manufacturing, so we all need to be one big region. That's all we're going to compete with. Yeah, sure. I'm sure that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Okay, I know this is a bold statement, but I think if you'll look into it, if you'll go look at some of these MPOs, RPOs, regional governance has, past tense, already replaced local government in North Carolina. They're 90% of the way there. And you guys that are running for county commissioner, I tell you, I don't envy you, because if you were to get elected, these are what you're going to have to fight right here. And you're going to quickly find out that you don't tie your shoes without asking the Land of the Sky Regional Council on how to do it, or how many times to do it, or whether or not you should bend over to do it. I think we're going to find that out as we go. But there are 17 councils of governments across all of North Carolina. There are 17 MPOs, that means Metropolitan Planning Organizations, and RPOs, Rural Planning Organizations. The Lake Norman RPO is who designed Cleveland County's comprehensive transportation plan that is calling for bike paths all over Cleveland County and buses all over Cleveland County and a train all over Cleveland County, of a county that is, it's small, it's 10 times smaller than Buncombe County. They can't support it. It's totally unsustainable economically. I mean, no way we can pay for it, but yet it's in there. We've already, and our county commissioners voted, all of them voted for it. Every single one of them, even the one the Tea Party put in.
I came across something the other day, David Gant was talking about greenways all the way from Asheville, all the way to
Yes.
Tennessee.
That is what greenways are, a big, big part of sustainability. Because what it does is it locks up land. It takes land away, good land. Usually gets us near water. It's, yes.
So always we got the mountains to the sea
Yeah,
trail.
there you go. That's right. Sure. All right. So Land of the Sky Regional Council. If you live in any four of those counties, your county pays dues to Land of Sky Regional Council.
Been there a while.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh well, you know it. Yeah. Now, this is a direct quote off their website. Members meet monthly to plan programs and set policies and goals to benefit the entire region. Now, who's on the Land of the Sky Regional Council? Was there a vote? Did I miss it? Of who got to sit on the Land of the Sky Regional Council?
There's elected officials, and then there are also managers.
And who decides who they are? They do.
Yeah,
Because, you know, the municipalities pay into land.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. And think about. I heard today on Fox News this super committee. Same thing. Exact same principle.
That's Region B.
Say it again.
That is Region B.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. That is Region B. That's right. And well, and we'll get to that. There you go. So they're all the regions. All right, now. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean. Regional governance has already really replaced constitutional government, in my opinion, because these guys decide on everything.
Is that, are those the counties that are listed there?
Some, yes. Like in other words, this is Region I, or yeah, I.
That's what I said, or Region Q, that's Washington County.
Mid-East Commission, yes, Washington, North Carolina,
Oh,
yes,
they
ma'am.
signed up for this?
Well, this is, yes, I mean, this is, well, see, that's the thing.
They're politicians.
Did anybody here sign up to be in Land of the Sky Regional Council? That's the point I'm trying to get across.
4 counties on that thing.
None of you did. What you voted for was your Buncombe County Commissioners. And you expected them to make decisions for Buncombe County.
So it's the commissioners that would put us in that category, right?
Well, these are called voluntary. You don't have to be in them, but if you do join them, you pay dues. Now, all right, let's say, is it David? Let's say David gets elected and he says, all right, you know what, I want us out of Land of the Sky Regional Council. And let's just say, hypothetically, he sways the board and they win. And then in 2012, the budget comes down for roads. How do you think Buncombe County is going to do when it comes to getting the gravy from Raleigh for roads?
Region B decides the priorities on that.
That's right, but what the decision you're going to have to make is, are you going to be brave and do it without money from Raleigh? And without money from the feds? Because you pull out of this, I promise you, you won't get any support. It's voluntary, but as you're going to see later, it's already state law in North Carolina that we will support with tax dollars communities that live sustainably versus communities that decide not to live sustainably. Already North Carolina law back in 2010.
It's been a lot longer than that. There's no money in Raleigh ever gets past Hickory into the mountains anyway. It's been that way for 100 years.
All right, so this is Central Carolina Council of Governments. This is, oh, wait, yeah, right here, Region F, Charlotte, North Carolina, okay? This is their balance sheet, 2010. Anybody want to take a gander at how much money ran through this little old non-for-profit, harmless little Central Carolina Council of Governments? $22 million.
Say it again.
$22 million.
They just dole it out.
Where do you think 94% of that $22 million came from?
Taxpayers.
Local, state, and federal taxes. A new government is being created and being funded by you. Right in front of your eyes.
Could you go over again what you said, a statement or two back about some counties being favored if they this, that, or the other?
We will. We're going to get into that.
Okay.
It's state law, and you'll see it's a part of it was actually voted in 2010. So that's Central Line. Now, that's only Central Line, and that's $22 million. There's 17 of these. And there are 17 MPOs and there are 20 RPOs who are also getting state or funded almost completely by state, local, and federal taxes.
You have a number for total?
No, I don't. You know what? That'd be good. That'd be a good number to get. That would. I mean, it takes some work, but you could probably figure out roughly what that would have been in 2010. It's a good idea. Write that down. You're hired.
I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Okay. Now, why stop with a council of governments for Charlotte? Why stop with that? Why don't we have a council of governors? Did anybody know we had that? This executive order, and this is right off the White House website, as you can see, January 11, 2010. Executive order that created the Council of Governors. The 10 governors match the 10 FEMA regions. FEMA is now a part of Homeland Security. Guess who one of the 10 just happens to be? Bev Perdue. Old Bev, old Bev. Old Bev. I'm sure that's only a coincidence that they match the FEMA regions. I'm sure they don't have any plans at all. I'm sure, just like she said, she was just kidding when she wanted to suspend elections. She was just kidding. Just kidding. Really. And it just so happened